one of those things that I never really could quite understand, but there's some people in the airsoft world that just don't want to carry the same rifle as everybody else. For some reason, having an M4 or an AK or some other standard battlefield rifle is like them giving up their individuality, and they want to go out onto the battlefield with something that's like a fashion statement. So for those people, we offer the Bullpup design of the assault rifle. The Bullpup is a firearm configuration in which the firing mechanism is located behind the shooter's trigger. A Bullpup rifle offers a shorter overall length without having to shorten the barrel length. The first of the Bullpup design rifles that we're going to talk about today is probably my least favorite out of all of them, and that's the Famas F1. The first prototype of the Famas was completed in 1971. However, production problems delayed general issue until 1978 with the Famas F1. The F1 was plagued with problems and was generally unreliable. It was replaced initially with the G1 and finally with the Famas G2 in 1994. Now, some people really love the shape of the Famas. To me personally, this is just a very bizarre looking shaped gun. The French Army refers to it as the bugle because it has this huge carry handle on it, which basically resembles an upside down bugle. Now, this particular model of the Famas is the F1. You can tell it's different from the G2 in that, number one, this has the smaller trigger guard, and it also has the Famas style magazines in it, and it doesn't take the standard NATO mags, which is one of my biggest complaints, is that if you have the F1, you have to buy specifically Famas magazines. You can't just pull a mag out of your M4 or your M16 and use it in this gun. Now, the Famas has quite a few non-standard features to it, and not all of them make sense to me. The first of them is the location of the safety, which is basically this little tab flag shaped thing, which basically goes in front of the trigger, which doesn't allow your trigger finger to get access to the trigger unless this is pushed out of the way. The second thing is the select fire switch, which is located back behind the magazine back here, which is a little ungainly to have to be reaching back like that in order to change from semi-automatic to fully automatic. It's not exactly the most intuitive location for putting that. It does have a weird looking thing up here on the barrel, which nobody has ever actually explained to me exactly what this is. I assume it's either something for a grenade launcher or maybe something for mounting a bayonet on the gun, but I don't know anybody that's ever actually been able to explain that to me. The other thing is this weird paddle-shaped device located in front of the cocking handle. I have no idea what the hell this thing does, but being a French gun, I assume it's something for mounting the little white flag on, so when you want to wave the surrender, you've got somewhere to put your white flag, since that's pretty much what the French Army does these days.
I'm French! Why do you think I have this outrageous accent, you silly king?
Now, one of the things that I do like about the Famas is the fact that it has the built-in bipod, which basically folds down like that and allows you to shoot the gun from a prone position and then folds back up and out of the way. As far as the airsoft features for this gun goes, the hop-up is located underneath this removable cheek piece, which gives you access to the dial for changing the hop-up there. This also has the battery compartment located in the front handguard. You just take the safety and rotate it all the way, and the handguard pulls out, giving you access to the battery. Now, the gun functions fairly well as an airsoft gun, and as a repair shop, we don't see more of these than we see of, like, say, M4s and AKs, so there's no inherent problems with the design or that it's prone to breakage. But the problem is when they do break, it's hard to get parts for these things. So you're going to be waiting a long while to get whatever replacement parts you need, versus if you get an AK or an M4, I can guarantee you with absolute certainty that we'll be able to get you the replacement parts that you need, usually off the shelf. Now, one gun I give a solid 10 to just based on its appearance is the FN F2000. The F2000 was initially released in 2001 by the Belgian weapons manufacturer Fabrique Nationale, or FN. It uses standard 5.56 NATO rounds and magazines. The weapon has been fielded by around a dozen international spec ops groups in Europe and the Middle East, and is the primary rifle of the Slovenian Army. Overall, the F2000 is a very well thought out gun. It fits very naturally into your body, it's very ergonomic, and all the controls are easily reachable from your shooting position, so you don't have to change your grip on the gun in order to go from safety to full auto and so on. The only time you do have to change your grip on the gun is to change magazines, which is a release located right here in front of the mag well. You would basically take your free hand back and change magazines in this fashion, which is one of the weird things about this gun. It doesn't have a bolt hold open device, so on your last shot, nothing stays open on the gun. So you'll basically shoot your last shot and it'll go click, and then you know it's time to change magazines, and you'd rack the slide, and then you'd be back in the action. One thing I think just about everybody would appreciate about this gun is how easy it is to get into the gun to clear jams in the barrel. You basically just push in this button located on the stock, which allows you to draw this bolt out of it, and then just pull the whole barrel assembly forward, and you can get in there to clear any kind of jams or obstructions that you might have in the barrel. As far as it goes with the airsoft features of this gun, the battery is located inside of the rear of the gun. So you just basically peel up this butt pad, and then the whole pad lifts up, and that gives you access to the battery inside of the rear of the stock. You also can lift up this little trap door, which gives you access to the hop-up unit inside of the gun. So you guys with big fat hands that have a hard time with the M4 hop-ups are going to like this, because it's a lot easier to reach in there and change your hop-up settings. Now this does have the standard Picatinny rail on it, so it's fairly easy to get accessories like scopes and lasers and flashlights to fit on the gun. But like the Famas, this is a fairly non-standard design. So if you break something on this gun and you need to get replacement parts for it, they're going to be very hard to come by. So if the overall availability of replacement parts is important to you, you may want to stick with your M4. Out of all of the Bullpup design rifles, my personal favorite is the FN P90. The P90 by FN gets its name from the year 1990, which it was introduced. The P90 is a new class of firearms called personal defense weapons, or PDWs. It shoots a higher velocity round than submachine guns, but is much smaller than assault rifles. The P90 has seen worldwide use and is used domestically by many police and SWAT units. The whole concept with the P90 and PDWs in general is they wanted something to bridge the gap between full-size assault rifles and the smaller submachine guns. They basically wanted all the hitting power of the assault rifles in a more compact size of the submachine gun, so they developed the 5.7 round, which basically gives you a much higher velocity round than the standard 9mm cartridges which most submachine guns fire, and it's also capable of defeating body armor. And you can see in this case the magazine holds around 50 rounds, and yet it's a fairly compact size for the overall weapon. As far as the overall ergonomics and the feel of the gun, you're in a very compact shooting position with this gun, so it's basically designed for close quarter style combat. Also coupled with this round, which is the 5.7, is not really designed for long range work, so most of your targets are going to be 50 yards or less. This gives you the same safety as the F2000, which is basically a rotating disc which alternates between automatic, semi-automatic, and safety. The cocking lever is located on both sides of the receiver for ambidextrous use, and the most unusual thing is the fact that the magazine is located on top of the receiver so that you can see the number of rounds you have in your peripheral view, so you know when it's time to do a magazine change, and then the magazine just removes out of the top of the gun and a fresh magazine can be added that way. Now, as I mentioned, this is my favorite gun because this is probably the easiest airsoft gun to work on out of all of the airsoft guns that are out there. To disassemble it, you just basically remove the magazine from the top of the receiver, and then you'll notice that there's a button located right here. You just basically depress that button and it allows you to remove the entire barrel assembly. So if you get a jam, it's very simple to get in there and clear a jam and then get right back to work. One thing that I think most guys that do tech work would really appreciate is how easy it is to get to the gearbox on this gun. You just basically drop the rear panel of the gun, which is where the battery goes also, but there's just two screws there. You pop these two screws and the entire gearbox mechanism pulls right out of the back of the gun. So I can have this gun disassembled in, I'd say, under 30 seconds. Now, like the F2000, this has a standard rail mounted on top of the receiver for adding optics. It also adds an additional standard rear notch and front blade, so it's very easy to use this thing without any kind of optics. It gives you just a basic rudimentary sight for sighting the gun in, but it's mostly designed to be used with some sort of optic, either a red dot or a scope. It does have additional rails on either side of that also for adding extra accessories like lasers and flashlights, but like all the other guns that we've talked about today, getting any kind of accessories or parts for these guns are fairly hard to come by. So that's the basics on Bullpups, and yeah, I know there's a lot of guns we didn't cover, like the Tavor TAR-21, the Steyr AUG, and a couple other ones, and we've talked about them in previous episodes, but my objections to those guns is pretty much the same as my objections to these guns today, in that getting replacement parts for these guns is very difficult. And that kind of sucks when you figure the amount of money you're spending on some of these guns to walk into the shop and hear the guy tell you, well, it's going to take about a month for us to get parts for it. And if that's a consideration, you may want to stick with your standard AKs and M4s. But if you want to be a big fashion statement, feel free to stop in. We've got these too. We'll be glad to let you try them out, and we'll give you all the positives and the negatives on the gun so you can make an educated decision when you decide on what you want to buy. So feel free to stop in or give us a call, and until then, we'll see you the next time.